Hello and welcome into the Cali to Cuse Up in the Rafters podcast. It's another week, which means another episode of Cali to Cuse coming at you on Thursday, February 25th is when we're recording this. New episodes drop every Friday morning. I'm your host, Anthony Scott, joined alongside me, as always, Lucas Silverman and Andrew Poppy Carey. Poppy, we'll start with you. As we're recording this, some big games going on in college basketball right now.
Some big games going on. We got number 1 Gonzaga in action. We got number 3 Michigan in action. Gonzaga actually losing at the under 12 right now to Santa Clara, while Michigan's down by 1 at home against number 9 Iowa. So just a packed night here. Later on, we got number 4 team in action, Ohio State. So yeah, a big night on this Thursday night. I'm sure we'll know the results when you're listening on Friday, obviously.
Definitely. And championship week, I guess if you could call it, the first conference championship tournaments kick off today as well with the Horizon League. Lucas, are you a fan of these smaller conference tournaments? I know I pay attention when it gets to the championship round, but maybe not these early rounds.
Does the sun set on the horizon? Is that what that means?
I think so.
Okay, that's as much as I know about the Horizon League. So I'm going to take, that's as much as they mean to me at this current stage.
Yeah, definitely. We're getting into the crunch time of college basketball here. You think got like 1 week left of the regular season for a lot of teams. Some teams are already in their conference tournaments. So really gearing up for March, Tournaments are going to be released or brackets are going to be released in 2 weeks, 3 weeks here. We are Cali to Cuse Up in the Rafters, your home for college basketball, from Syracuse to Cali, or from Cali to Syracuse. My mind's all over the place. Start this podcast here. You can find us on all of your streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else you get your podcast, as well as YouTube. We're also on YouTube. You can catch our episodes in video form on Saturday mornings. And you can also find us at thechallenge-sports.com. We linked up with them at the beginning of the college basketball season. They have a bunch of great articles over on their website, another podcast about all of sports in general. So definitely give them a look, thechallenge-sports.com. They also have some great merchandise as well. But I think it's time to get into some college basketball, Lucas. Let's kick it off with some Syracuse basketball, our home team.
Cut yourself a break for a second. We're all a little scattered brain trying to get to the weekend here. We're all trying to get to the weekend. We're actually all linking up this weekend for the first time in a while, so I think we're all just excited for that. But, moving on to Syracuse basketball, talk about scattered. You had a great win against Notre Dame at home, 75-67. And then on Monday, absolutely pummeled by Duke, 85-71. The score doesn't really indicate how bad of a game this actually was for the Cuse. Duke shot lights out as well, but we're going to start off with the W because we always have to start off with the W for the Cuse before we bring us back down to level playing field. Big win against Notre Dame. Pop, anything stick out to you? Are they just a really good home team at this point in this stage? Like, it always seems like these back-to-backs of road and away, they always go 1-1, and you can always bank that they're going to lose the away game. So they've been taking care of business at home.
Yeah, that seems to be the trend for sure, taking care of business at home and then losing on the road. In my opinion, in the last few years, actually, I've thought that, Syracuse has become reliant on the 3, and I actually thought that they've shot the ball better. Holy cow, scatterbrained as well. I thought that they shot the ball better on the road over the last few years. However, that's not been the case this year. They're winning games at home and shooting the ball well at home. You mentioned what stuck out against Notre Dame. Obviously, Buddy Boeheim's 29 points. He had a huge game. So give credit where credit is due. He couldn't miss in the second half, really. And, this was a pretty big comeback, a pretty substantial comeback at that. Syracuse down 14 at the half, and I believe it got to as much as 20 early in the second half, and they were able to come back and win. A much-needed win, especially after that loss at Duke, and it really kind of is the last grasp here for the Orange as they have 3 regular season games, I believe, left. With the addition of Clemson now on March 5th, they're coming to the Dome, so that's nice for the Orange, another opportunity to play a good team. But, Anthony, the Duke loss hurt. The Notre Dame game, I guess, what were your bright spots here?
Yeah, obviously Buddy he stole all the headlines, but I got to give shout out to our guy, the Candyman on Twitter, Quincy Guerrier, though. He had 14 rebounds, another huge performance on the glass, and it's what we needed. He got a lot of extra possessions for us, which ended up resulting in a lot of Buddy Boeheim threes, so that was great. This game was kind of a reversal. The first half, Notre Dame kind of shot the lights out. They were running up and down the court. Second half, Syracuse took control of tempo and we're able to close it out, winning by 8. We thought a lot of momentum should be heading into this Duke game. We just had a great comeback against Notre Dame. Shouldn't this carry over to Duke? Huge game. Obviously, a tournament bid was kind of on the line. Both Syracuse and Duke were on the bubble heading into that game. And Duke kind of showed that they belong in the field of 68 and leaving Syracuse in the dust. I mean, from the beginning, it seemed like they came to play. Syracuse was left on the bus. I don't know if that's what's happening with these road games. You would think the road shouldn't be that difficult this year in a COVID year. There's less fans. I mean, you go to Cameron Indoor Stadium, half the battle is the fans. You don't have to battle with that this year, and yet you're still losing by, 15 points? You're down 20 most of the game. You're down 10 in the beginning of the game. Once again, I'm not going to say it's all Joe Girard's fault, but you're still starting Joe Girard, putting you in these holes to begin the game. As soon as Kidari came in, he kind of limited the damage. I just want to know what happens if Kidari starts the game. Do we get off to a little better run? Does it get some momentum going? Because we were just killed from the first 5 minutes going down 10 points.
One thing that really stuck out to me, especially in that Duke game, was the fact that it always is like Coach K versus Boeheim, but Jalen, the headlines were definitely skewing in Duke's direction. Like Jalen Johnson had just left, and like that might have even been addition by subtraction. It seemed like the locker room was just not on the same page with Jalen Johnson there being out and now coming back, and then obviously leaving again. Sounded like Duke, who has been hot. I mean, they've won 4 in a row, right? So, they're definitely a quality team now. They're playing their best basketball of the season, which is going to come at the perfect time come Selection Sunday. But the most generic name that I saw on the court was Mark Williams, absolutely pummeling that Syracuse zone. He's just a high riser, throw it up to him, he's going to come down with it. I love every time we get back to it, Merrick gets the highlight of Zion taking a charge on Zion. That's always a fun sight to see. But it seems like these athletic players at Duke that they bring in just can dominate a zone. And I know that Boeheim and Coach K have had their battles, but there was a stat that if both teams don't make the tournament, it'll be the first time since 1982. Insane stat. I mean, considering how great Duke has been, and obviously Cuse is always in the mix. So that really felt like a loser leaves loser leaves town type of match where Duke was riding high and Cuse needed a quality road win, and unfortunately it didn't go that way.
One thing in that Duke game, Poppy, I want you to touch on it. Just how good did Kidari Richmond look? Because I think this was his best game he had all season.
Yeah, I mean, certainly based on the stat line for Kidari, he had a great game with 15 points. I unfortunately wasn't able to watch the game, but it was rather fortunate, if we're being honest. I had no desire to watch the game, especially after I heard the Jalen Johnson, Jim Boeheim comments that was going on in the first half. It's just ridiculous. I don't even think Jay Billis should pay Jim Boeheim the attention anymore at this point with his post-game antics. We have stuff after the game. Boeheim, this can touch into your Kidari question here. Boeheim saying that Joe Girard told the team at halftime that he wasn't playing defense in the first half and wasn't giving it his all. I mean, the stuff just can't happen. And really, you can blame Joe Girard for that. Obviously, he's the person involved, but who's the coaches here? That shouldn't happen in a road game, a must-win scenario. He also touched on the fact that his forwards haven't played defense all year, meaning Alan Griffin and Quincy Guerrier, and all they care about is scoring the basketball. That's a direct quote right there. So, it's unbelievable to watch and see this guy say what he says after the game. Kidari Richmond is the future at Syracuse. That is if he wants to stick around and play for this guy.
Wow.
Ooh,
we've run some players out of town in the past, but we need Kidari.
Next year – you guys were supposed to have Dior Johnson, and that ended up not being the case. And now Kidari's your real guy. Plus Buddy, come on. And Joe, come on. They're going to be sticking around. But, yeah.
I mean, they'll be there.
But Alan Griffin and Guerrier, for a zone type of defense, you're looking for such a specific type of way to play it. And being only there for a year and, even shortened seasons like we've had doesn't allow them to really – develop that. I mean, the best Syracuse teams have been players that have been there for 2 or 3 years plus, veterans and know how to play it. But it's not. Jim Boeheim's just looking for the clickbait articles. Maybe you can join the challenge. We can get a couple article titles from him. Some direct.
Tells it like it is. That's for sure.
So
how he sees it.
Concerning to say the least. But hey, they got next week. They got at Georgia Tech, a potential quad 1 win. North Carolina, and 2 home games, North Carolina and Clemson at the Dome. You know how good they are at the Dome. Do they have to sweep, Pop, or can they go 2-1? They obviously they're not going to make noise if they go 1-2 or 0-3. That's a fact. But they need to go sweep these next three, and then obviously win a couple in the tourney, or can they go 2-1 and have any ounce of chances to make it?
I mean, I guess you could go 2-1 if you go down to North Carolina and do, a lot of good things in the ACC tournament, come out with 2 to 3 wins. But really at this point, I just don't see that happening. Going down to Georgia Tech seems like a sure loss, in my opinion. They never play well there. Georgia Tech, we talked about this in our group chat last night, is a really good team, and they've been playing very well as of late especially, and I just don't think that their senior leadership, especially at the guard position with Jose Alvarado and Michael DeVoe, I really think that hurts Syracuse. Those are two guys that have played against the zone defense a bunch in their college careers, and it's not going to go well down in Atlanta this weekend. And then playing Carolina is always tough for Syracuse given their size. Clemson could be a win, but I just see a split between those two. I think Syracuse will finish 1-2 down this stretch here, and then basically have to win the ACC tournament if they want any chances.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, you agree?
Yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. I think these are 3 terrible matchups for Syracuse. I think they do need to go 3-0. If you go 2-1, you got to make the semifinals or finals of the ACC tournament. You go 3-0, you're in a good position, but I give them about a 5% chance to do that. Clemson, we talked about it the first time they met, always a tough matchup for Syracuse. I don't know the last time we beat North Carolina. They always seem to have our number. And then any road game this year, you can just mark as an L. And Georgia Tech is hot right now. So the most likely scenario is 0-3. See ya. Maybe get a call from the NIT. But, yeah, the Duke loss was kind of the last nail in the coffin for me, especially seeing what was ahead on the schedule. I said last pod that we were going to go 2-0 the past week. We got the Notre Dame win. The Duke loss was the killer because now this is a tougher 3-0, a tougher ask for Syracuse to go undefeated this week than it was last week.
Throw it back to you, Scott. What's the ideal? How do you think what do they have to do differently? Like, is it the rotations? Is it ball movement? Is it just, the defense? Because UNC has so many good big men, for example. Like, how are you going to match up with all those great big men? Exactly. Can they outscore these teams? I mean, if Buddy drops another 29, maybe.
Right, yeah. I mean, the three-point shot's always the great equalizer. We say Syracuse likes to shoot a lot of threes. Whether they make them is to be seen from a game-to-game basis. So, yeah, if we can shoot 50% from three, we can hang with anybody. But the size is really the killer for the Syracuse team. You saw it with Mark Williams and Duke. You saw it in the beginning of the Notre Dame game. I forget the guy's name on Notre Dame, but he had like 4 dunks in the first 5 minutes of that game, all getting behind the zone. So I wrote an article for the challenge saying 3 things that Syracuse needs to do. One of those things was getting Brahma Sidibe back. He's not coming back. We have no size down low. It's going to be a killer. Even if somehow we do make the tournament, it'll come back to bite us in the tournament. We see the stat every game. Syracuse is undefeated when they out-rebound the opponent. We've only won 1 game when we get out-rebounded, and that's going to happen a lot against these better teams.
That is going to happen a lot. And the most frustrating part is you're harping on the issue of not having a big man here. And I get that right now without Barama Sidibe, it appears Syracuse doesn't have a big man. But my biggest issue is there are 3 guys on the Syracuse bench right now, all over 6'10", and he just refuses to play them. You got John Bolajak. You got the freshman Frank Anselm, who's a fairly highly recruited kid. I get he reclassified. He should technically be a high school senior right now. But how about we recruit a center? If the long, lengthy guys aren't going to work, how about we go back to the old ways? We recruit a Narenze Onuaku. We recruit a Rick Jackson, a guy who's like a landlord down there, just takes up space, is 5 fouls a night, can give you some offense on the other end with hook shots, low post moves. But no, nothing changes in the recruiting game for him. They don't seem to bring in any different kind of big men. It's always a lengthy, 6'11" guy who has extremely long arms and is rail thin, who's going to work good in his zone. That's all he recruits for is his zone defense, and that's hindering the team right now.
If you're also a Syracuse player, what is your sentiment to Boeheim after all of these comments about what he's been saying? Like, how do you – if you're Guerrier, Gerard, or Allen Griffin, how are you feeling about yourself after your coach just rips you? Like, I get it's a motivation tactic, and I guess that could work, but it can't be good.
Yeah. I mean, it has worked in the past. You think about a guy like Tyler Roberson, who was up and down a lot. Sometimes Boeheim would say something in the media, and then all of a sudden Roberson seemed like he was fired up and was playing a little bit better. But, after a point, I think it just wears on a kid. you look at a guy like Jesse Edwards, against Duke, another reporter asked him a question about not playing big men and relying on Dolage, and he just simply gives the same answer every time, saying they're not ready, which, one, is an indictment on his coaching staff and himself. Whose job is it to improve the players? You. And number two, you look at a guy like Jesse Edwards, who he was saying this about last year when they needed a big man at different times, and he's still saying this about him this season. Just the other day against Duke, he said Jesse Edwards still isn't ready. So I don't think Jesse Edwards will ever be ready, at least not at Syracuse. And that's why you see so many guys transferring out recently.
Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Sorry to cut you off, Anthony.
No, I echo the statement. So that was perfect. I'm glad you brought up Roberson. Like you said, like when you say it after every game, at a certain point, the player's like, I get it, coach. You don't need to ream me out in front of everybody. Like, come on.
We'll see how it goes. I mean, big games this weekend. Moving forward, Duke obviously got their big win, and they're kind of nipping at the barn and entering the top 25, but they're not currently in the top 25. As we do our top 25 update, no big changes on our end when the official rankings came out last week, but now, since then, Baylor had a close one. Illinois is reeling a little bit, but and there's a lot of games going on right now. Additionally, we had two teams re-enter the top 10 in Iowa and West Virginia, and then because of Houston's dropped to 6-12, so much movement, so much is going to happen during these next couple of hours. Are those the top five you think are the best 5 teams in the country still, or is there a team that's nipping at the barn to be in that top 5?
For me, I mean, the top 3 is set. I think Ohio State, right now, they currently sit in 4th, even after losing to Michigan. And I think you have to keep them there. I mean, Illinois, they lost to Michigan State. Alabama lost to Arkansas on Wednesday night. I don't see Villanova jumping up there. I don't see Oklahoma jumping up there. Maybe if Iowa beats – who are they playing? Michigan tonight? If Iowa beats Michigan on Thursday while we're recording this, maybe they could jump in there. But I still don't see it. Michigan only has 1 win on the season. So I think top 4 is solidified right now. Poppy, yeah.
I still really like this Nova team. I know I've been harping on them all year. I do think they're a top 5 team in the country. Maybe they don't belong in that top 3 conversation right now. But I think they're a top 5 team, especially given no Ayo Dosunmu right now for Illinois. If that becomes a long-term issue, which right now they're saying just a broken nose. They called it a face injury today, so maybe it's not a broken nose, but he's not playing tonight on Thursday night either way, and that could be an issue going forward. I still really like Nova, though. Like I said, they had to slip up against St. John's, but then they destroyed St. John's the other night, really took care of business. Had to slip up against Creighton, who is a good team, but they also just shot the lights out in that game, and it really hurt Villanova, excuse me.
Good points. I still think I can't agree more with you guys. The top 3 is solidified.
Yeah.
I could see like a hot Florida State team maybe jumping in there. Iowa has the best player in the country. I always say this all time and time again. Additionally,
let's just talk about the 1 seeds, I guess, real quick while we're on the top 25.
Yeah.
Do you guys think Ohio State stays as that 4th 1 seed, or do you see another team, Poppy? I assume you think Villanova could jump in there.
I do think they could, but that being said, I think the Big Ten deserves probably 2 number 1 seeds this year, just given on how they've been beating up on each other so much. Ohio State, I wasn't high on them, but they just kept winning, and you have to give them a lot of credit for that, especially against some of the good teams that they've beaten. And yeah, I mean, I think, if you put them on the 1 line, I'm having no issue with it.
I would only say if Bama or Nova or Florida State just runs the table the rest of the season and wins their conference tournament, I would do that. If Ohio State and Michigan meet each other in the Big Ten championship game, then I do think that Ohio State, the winner, the both of those should make it.
Yeah, Alabama's an interesting case as well, and Florida State too, because Florida State's not getting the respect by the voters. What are they
right
in the top 10, and they've been running through the ACC. So if they end up winning the ACC, I think they have a pretty strong case. But yeah, Ohio State definitely the front runner.
Exactly. Florida State and Kansas have the biggest jumps in the top 25 this week. FSU moves from 16th to 11th, while Kansas 23rd to 17th. Kansas, back in our hearts again?
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, they're back here. I mean, they beat Texas Tech. Is that who they beat at home this past week that helped elevate them? I don't know.
They just beat Texas, regular Texas.
Regular Texas, okay. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do.
Exactly. And then finally, Finally, an ACC darling, UVA, had the biggest drop, 8 spots from 7 to 15. A. Scott. UVA, are they on the downhill right now?
For sure. We kind of talked about after that Virginia-Florida State game when Virginia absolutely got ran out of the gym. We kind of talked about some of the downfalls, the shortcomings of this Virginia team on the offensive end. And they went out there and they lost another game this past week. They lose to Duke and then NC State after that Florida State game. So 3 straight losses now for Virginia. The offense just isn't always there. They didn't score over 65 points in any of those games. The defense is good, but not great. And, yeah, I don't see this team as really a powerhouse team. I mean, the defense is always going to be there, but that offense, obviously, you got to score points to win a game. Virginia against these high-powered offenses, I don't think they're going to get it done. I don't think their defense is good enough to hold high-powered offenses down, and then they can't keep up scoring-wise. If you look at Virginia's schedule, I mean, it doesn't even look that great. They don't really have any great wins on this resume. It's kind of weird. You'd expect Virginia to be a powerhouse top 3 seed. Their best win on the season is either at Clemson or home against North Carolina. I mean, they lost to Virginia Tech, Florida State, Gonzaga. They couldn't get it done. They have no really quality wins. I'm not too scared of this Virginia team.
Yeah, their offense has been the real issue down the stretch lately in this skid that they've hit. You know, in the beginning part of the season, a lot of people were really calling this maybe the best offensive team that Tony Bennett's had at Virginia, and that's saying a lot, obviously, as they're still technically defending national champions. But obviously a team that's known for their defense more. It's still good. It's still there. But, yeah, I completely agree. The offense has kind of gone back to its old ways of late. And, you know, they really need Trey Murphy to get back to where he was, the small forward who transferred in from Rice. I think he's the key for them. He's athletic. He can drive a little bit. He can shoot from the outside. He's, you know, kind of that really talented player who could maybe take over in the NCAA tournament for them if they're having scoring issues.
I think it's going to be a real problem for them. They're good defensively. I just think Kihei Clark is where I go back to. He's 5'9". How are you going to make a run with a guy who's so short against these bigger guards even like normal, like Joe Girard towers over a Kihei Clark. Obviously, Kihei Clark is better than Joe Girard, but, you know, the size matters in terms of, you know, making a run in the ACC and in the tournament. But they drop down to 15. No teams fall in or out of the top 25. I feel like we rarely see that. You know, it's very rare that you just see no movement in or out of the top 25. Obviously, movement within the 20s, up and down, but that about does it for the top 25 update. And
before we move on, just get Tennessee out of the top 25. They should have fell out by now.
Frauds.
You can continue.
Another team, real quick though, another team from Tennessee who belongs in the top 25. They should flip them. Belmont, getting no love. No love any year. They're 24-1, 18-0 in conference. They don't play in a good conference. I'm not going to hide the fact that they play in a weak conference, but 24-1, man, give them some respect. I mean, I thought, you know, this season was just about winning, basically. That seems to be how a lot of people are voting on the top 25, just based on winning, and Belmont's doing that. I don't see why they're not, you know, they should be getting a little more love than they are, in my opinion.
Especially considering Loyola, Chicago, and Drake have already seen the
Yeah, exactly.
Moving over, though, from the top 25, some big news announced in terms of the NCAA and how they're selecting teams this year. Poppy, you brought this to our attention in the group chat today, and I was pretty shocked reading what they had to say.
Yeah, so CBS Sports' Matt Norlander, you can check out his Twitter for all the details, but I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Obviously, there is an issue that could arise if a team is to get COVID in Indiana this year in the bubble for the NCAA tournament. So the NCAA tournament committee had to come up with an idea. Here's the idea. You select, you know, the top 68 teams get into the tournament like they would, the play-in games, all that stuff. There's going to be 4 teams then that are designated by the tournament committee after that, teams 69 through 72, who will be eligible and can accept taking places for teams that get COVID in the event that that does happen. So now the issue does become, though, the NCAA tournament will need to find teams from from AQ leagues, the mid-majors. So each conference is still going to have one representative. So the number 2 team in that conference presumably would get in. But if you have a situation where an 11-seeded, North Carolina, let's say they're an 11 seed, they get COVID, Syracuse is the 69th team, they'll get the call and they can replace North Carolina. Now, say you have a 4-seeded West Virginia. Syracuse would now get the call and be the 4 seed if they're 69. Even same goes for Gonzaga. Syracuse could be the number 1 overall seed and play the 16 seed this year, but that has to mean that the Mountain West gets 2 teams, I'm assuming, Gonzaga's conference. Excuse me, not the Mountain West, the West Coast Conference. Mm-hmm. So this brings up a lot of interesting things. Obviously, each conference they're going to try and get a representative from still, which I think is a good idea. But obviously, there's a hugely unfair advantage if some team like a Syracuse, just for example, is to get a number 1 overall seed because somebody gets COVID. That's crazy to think about. They're not moving the seeding. They say they don't want to screw around with that, which I understand because that opens up a huge can of worms. But what do you guys think about this? I mean, this is, there could be a situation where a bad team gets an easy road to the Final Four.
I mean, it's crazy to think about how much fluctuation could happen with that. I mean, a team, like, for example, what are the other options though? So like if Gonzaga does get COVID and the protocol is you can't play for 10 days, what's the alternative? I mean, you got to keep the ball rolling. I mean, it's tough. It's a tough call. I mean, imagine Syracuse as a number 1 would be hilarious. I think we all would agree with that. And if they got upsetted by the 8 seed, because obviously the 8 seeds are probably better than Syracuse, but it could just mean a lot of madness and even more craziness. And that's why a lot of these teams understand before the season, like the Baylors and the Gonzagas, the Michigans, all went through their COVID protocols. They already went through the process of not being able to do anything for 10 days. So maybe they understand how serious it is, and hopefully they actually take it. I mean, what is there a line that says that a team that's gonna happen? I want to see the line for that. Yes or no? Is it plus money, or is it plus money that one team gets it, or no?
I think that yes has got to be favorited that this is going to happen to one team. There's 68 teams, and even up to it now, when I guess infections are dropping across the country, we're still seeing dozens of games canceled every Saturday. Seems like there's always a big game that doesn't get played because of COVID still, as we're a week away here from the conference tournaments. And I do want to propose a different solution that the NCAA should have maybe thought about, delaying the NCAA tournament a full week. It's only 1 week. I understand that you don't want to delay it anymore. You have Selection Sunday, and then instead of playing the games on Friday, you play them the next Friday. That gives you 10 days from Selection Sunday, the quarantine period, that you could have to quarantine for those 10 days, hope that you don't have COVID, all that stuff, and then you're good to go on that Friday. Give them a week and a half in between Selection Sunday and when the games get going. Because my fear, Michigan, Ohio State, they play in the Big Ten championship game. The Big Ten championship game is on the afternoon of Selection Sunday. Mm-hmm. Let's say one of them somehow has COVID. They play the game. Now you're left without Michigan and Ohio State in the NCAA tournament, 2 of the best teams. I think delaying this would have been a smarter option, but if you want to play it on time, this is the only option. Have a handful of backup teams ready. It's not going to be fair, but it's the best you can do because, like you said, Poppy, I don't think you can quickly in 3 days when Gonzaga moves out, move everybody up, change everything around. You're already preparing for the team you're supposed to be playing on Friday.
And the other thing is, too, which yet to be determined is, I mean, this is unlikely, hopefully, given the fact that these teams will be taking the bubble seriously. But what if, Gonzaga is in the Elite Eight, one of their players breaks quarantine, comes back with COVID, the team gets it while they're in the Elite Eight. Now, right now, based on my understanding, is they're going to still play the Elite Eight without that team, so they will no longer be in. But what does that mean for the team that they were supposed to play against? Is that an automatic trip to the Final Four? If Gonzaga was playing the 4 seed in their region, who was West Virginia, is that an automatic trip to the Final Four for West Virginia? And I cashed my Final Four future bet for West Virginia. Is that what we're looking at?
The roadmap has always been to get West Virginia to the Natty, and this is a big example about how they're going to get that roadmap there.
I don't want to jinx it. I don't want to bring it up, but with your luck, Poppy, it's going to be West Virginia that gets the COVID in the Elite Eight.
Yeah. And the Natty, no, they're going to get it to the Natty, and then all of a sudden, just boom.
I know. What if the Natty championships cancel because of COVID? I think they're making these rules with the assumption that the bubble will work. Obviously, they're thinking once they get everybody in the bubble, they're safe. These are for the 4 days in between Selection Sunday and when the games actually start. So I guess my last question to you guys on this topic is, do you think the bubble will work? We saw it work in the NBA. This is a little different. You have 4 different cities in one state. Your thoughts?
Hopefully they just take it serious enough. You know what I mean? Like they have to understand that this is an opportunity for them to win a national championship. Many of them probably their last year in college basketball if they're good enough or if they're seniors. And hopefully they take that seriously. You know, I mean, just listen to the rules and try not to come back with COVID. I hope it'll work. You know, it's a little different trusting players playing for free rather than trusting those NBA guys who are making money, in my opinion. But you know, people are people. Stuff happens, and hopefully they'll do the right thing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm optimistic that it's going to work out. I think there is a little bit more of, intensity from like a reputation aspect that you don't want to be that guy. No one wants to be the person. And so even if it's a 16-seeded backup point guard, they're going to take it pretty seriously.
Yeah, I'd crossing my fingers, hoping we can get through it. I can't do 2 years in a row without an NCAA March Madness, especially with how much preparation I put into it, watching all these games. I need to see the bracket, need to see how it plays out. We're only 3 weeks away here. We're right around the corner. From the NCAA tournament to a team trying to get into the NCAA tournament, they looked like they were a lock after their win against Louisville. And then this past week, they go out there, they add a game to their schedule in Marquette, and they lose it. We're talking about UNC, North Carolina. They scheduled a game against Marquette in the middle of the week. Seemed like an easy resume booster. And they go out there and they lose 83-70 on the road. It was a road game. They scheduled Northeastern last week. They seem to be trying to fill in some holes that they're losing because of COVID. Lucas, do you think this is a smart idea by Roy Williams? Does he kind of just shoot himself in the foot? Should he just say, hey, COVID is canceling our games. There's nothing we can do about it? Or should he be out there playing teams like Marquette and Northeastern?
If you're scheduling games in the middle of a season, you better know you're going to win them. So it's on Roy for whatever happens. You beat Northeastern, you play Marquette, you don't get it done, and you're caught with your pants down because you thought it was a good idea to do this, but maybe you guys just aren't good enough. I mean, Marquette's had some decent teams in the past, but on the road as well is not easy. But if you're rescheduling games, you better know you're going to win this game. And you should be the consequences should come with it. Like, you shouldn't be it should be used against you because you lost.
Yeah, definitely. I can see both sides of the coin here. He's looking at it as, this is an easy win to add to our resume. We're having him this game was in North Carolina, so they were having him come into their own place. Marquette 11-12 on the season, not great. But Marquette has been pretty competitive in a lot of games. They beat a good Creighton team earlier in the year. So, some of this stuff is what Roy Williams should have recognized when he scheduled this team. Now, all that being said, I'm sure he didn't foresee all of his big men getting into foul trouble with Armando Bacot having 3 fouls, Day'Ron Sharp and Garrison Brooks each finishing with 4. And I really think that was the big reason as to why they lost. They allowed Marquette to shoot almost 52% from the field. They didn't have any of their rim protectors out there at different times in the game. And that's going to cost you, against any team who's decent. And it did last night. I think this is a bad loss for North Carolina, certainly, and it definitely hurts their chances of them getting in.
Yeah, my apologies there. The game was in North Carolina. I originally said it was in Marquette. Thanks for catching me, Poppy. But, yeah, North Carolina, I don't know what they were trying to gain from this. I don't know what they were trying to gain from Northeastern. I guess trying to keep your guys in game form, keep them ready for the big games. But you can't go out there and lose these, I guess, a layup type of games for North Carolina. I understand if you go out there and schedule a good team like a Houston or something like that, try and really get another quad 1 win. But when you're playing Northeastern and Marquette at home, the only thing that could come out of it is a bad loss. If you win, you're not going to get any higher in the seeding. You're just going to get another win on your resume. It's not going to help you in the tournament. But if you lose, it's going to hurt you. So I don't understand what he was doing. I think that you could have stayed in game form by just practicing. I don't think you needed to go out there and play Northeastern and Marquette. And this Marquette one really bites him in the butt. I do want to give credit, though, to Western Kentucky, a team that's out there scheduling games. They scheduled Houston right now. I think they're playing tonight on Thursday. So that's a good opportunity right there. That's a smart coach who's like, all right, we're kind of on the bubble here unless we win our conference tournament. We've already beaten Alabama, Western Kentucky that is. So let's go out there, schedule Houston, see if we can get 2 quad 1 wins on our resume and maybe get in that large bid. I don't really see what Roy Williams was trying to gain from this.
Yeah, and right now, too, Western Kentucky only down by 1 at the half to Houston while we're recording this. So there you go. This could add to it. But just going back to that Marquette-UNC game, kind of an interesting angle as Steve Wojciechowski, the head coach of Marquette. I believe I'm pronouncing that name correctly, a former Duke point guard. So obviously a big angle here with the Duke-UNC rivalry. Former Duke point guard comes in, beats UNC in a huge game that could really kind of tank their season, if we're being honest, and prevent them from getting into March.
Yeah, I want to ask Lucas, are you maybe, if they do get into March, how worried are you of this North Carolina team? I feel like they're an interesting team that has a lot of good bigs. Their guard play maybe doesn't step up to that level. Leaky Black's pretty solid, but other than that, it's kind of a team dominated by the big man play.
Yeah, it's matchup. So if they have a couple matchups where they have the size advantage, they're talented enough to get it done. But if they're going against like an Iowa with the best big man in the league, that's like the barometer, or like, you know, I'm trying to even think of some other guys like West Virginia squad of big men. Like, they're not going to compete with those great teams, but it's all going to be about matchups. But they're on the downturn. I don't think they're going to have some tough matchups, even in the ACC tournament against like a Florida State and maybe even a UVA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's going to come down. Yeah.
Yeah, that win against Louisville really looks like that saving grace for this North Carolina team, beating them by 40. That was a huge win. I don't think if they don't get that win, if they lose to Louisville, I think they're on the outside looking in after that Marquette loss. But let's go ahead and speak on some of these bubble teams. According to Joe Lenardi, Joey Brackets, he has 3 Mountain West teams in the tournament right now: Colorado State, San Diego State, and I think Utah State. Or Utah State's on the bubble. Or no, Boise State, excuse me. So it's Boise State, San Diego State, and Colorado State all in the tournament. I also wrote an article for the challenge-sports.com breaking down who I have in my tournament, kind of going up against Joe Lenardi. And we had kind of similar brackets, me and Joey Brackets, except for the Mountain West. I only have one team from the Mountain West getting in. I need to hear your thoughts. We kind of talked about it last time, Poppy, but none of these Mountain West teams besides Boise State have quality wins outside of the conference.
Yeah, and I believe this weekend we're going to see Boise State against San Diego State in one of those back-to-back doubleheaders. I think that's just going to really decide who should be in the tournament from this conference. Obviously, whoever wins the conference tournament will get the AQ. But if Boise State or San Diego State are to sweep that head-to-head and not win the conference tournament, I think they would still get in, just because they would have 2 extra quality wins on their resume in that conference. I think it's pretty ridiculous that he's got 3 teams from the Mountain West, if I'm being honest. I mean, I guess it's all about wins, like I said, but at the same time, you see somebody like he wouldn't have Belmont in as an at-large if they weren't to get their AQ, but he has these other teams from the Mountain West who are, playing maybe slightly better competition, but they're just splitting that competition in those back-to-backs. It doesn't really make much sense to me.
Yeah, Colorado State, Utah State, they tried to play some good teams in the non-conference. I think they scheduled VCU. One of them did. They both scheduled BYU, and they lost all those games. So, I mean, if you can't beat those teams, how good are you really? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's all subjective. Like, Lenardi clearly doesn't actually think 3 teams from the Mountain West is in, and it could always change. That's going to be his backup. Like, you win or you lose and you're out of it. I do think you're right that San Diego State to me seems like they're going to be in regardless. It seems like they're a very good team, and wouldn't be surprised if they ran the table and won the tournament. And then, if they win the conference tournament, then that's all they need is one team. But if a Boise State does beat them in one game, in the tournament, they're then 2. But that's the max. I don't see 3 Mountain West teams getting in there. No shot.
Yeah, right now I just have 1. I have Boise State in there. But if San Diego State sweeps Boise State, then I would definitely flip San Diego State and Boise State. Moving over from maybe a mid-major conference to a Power 5 conference that's looking to get more teams in, because right now they're having a down year. That's the ACC. But lately, they've been coming on hot, these bubble teams in the ACC besides Syracuse. Duke and Georgia Tech are kind of on a run. According to Joe Lenardi, they're still on the outside looking in. On my bracket, I have Duke as one of my last 4 in, and Georgia Tech is one of my first 4 out. So they're basically right there together. Poppy, I know you've been vying for this Georgia Tech team to get in. Tell us why you think they should be in.
Yeah, Georgia Tech's just been really hot down the stretch here. That win the other night against Virginia Tech in Blacksburg is going to be huge for them. And frankly, they blew them out 69-53. They come away with a win. And Tyrese Radford returned for the Hokies in this one after his suspension from the DUI. So I think, Georgia Tech is just a really dangerous team right now. I mentioned earlier on the podcast, I like their experienced guard depth up top. They have a very good big man in Moses Wright, who dropped 26 against Keme Aluma on Virginia Tech, who many believe is the best big man in the ACC. So, I just think Georgia Tech's got a lot of different pieces, good guard depth that gets you far in March. They've been playing well recently. If they can knock off Cuse and win a couple more here against Duke, that's probably going to decide who gets in, I would guess you'd say, Ant.
Yeah, I was going to say that Georgia Tech-Duke game is going to be huge. Obviously, Georgia Tech versus Syracuse is pretty big as well. I think the winner of that Georgia Tech-Duke game definitely has the upper hand. We'll move over to Duke, another team on the bubble. Lucas, are you seeing the Blue Devils getting in after we kind of trashed them all year? They're starting to come around here at the end.
Right. Like I mentioned, they're playing their best basketball this season. Jalen Johnson being out there now, it's addition by subtraction. Seemed like it just wasn't a fit, the locker room and just the vibe they were playing with. Matthew Hurt has been the difference maker. He's making his shots finally. He's that stretch four for them. I've seen a few Wendell Moore highlights. He's an McDonald's All-American. He's starting to get his act together. And then my guy, the most average name in America, Mark Williams, my guy, absolutely skyrocketing to the rim at all times, and I like his energy. So they're playing their best basketball this season. Can they continue it? We're going to have to wait and see, and I think they have to include Duke in the tournament, even if it's a last four in type of situation. That would be much-watched TV for a lot of people to see Duke even try to win a game to get into the tournament.
I'll tell you, if Duke doesn't get in the tournament, I can assure you they will be one of those replacement teams ready to go in case COVID-19 affects one of the teams, because the selection committee wants to get them in. Speaking of Duke playing well late, and I guess same goes for Georgia Tech, Poppy, would you, if you were on the committee, would you really put a lot of weight into how these teams are playing down the stretch compared to how they looked in the beginning of the year? Or are you one of the guys that looks at the complete body of work?
Traditionally, I'd say I think you got to look at the whole body of work. But with this being such a crazy season due to COVID, certain guys missing games here and there, games getting canceled, all that kind of crazy stuff, teams not being able to practice, that makes me lean more towards who's playing well at this time of the year. And both those teams are hot, obviously. Excuse me. Jalen Johnson leaving Duke, I really do think that it's helped the team a lot. They're 6-0 now without him, I believe. It might even be 7-0. And it just allows a lot more guys to get on the court that can do other things, especially Jamin Brakefield. I think he's a tremendous player, a freshman who's really been slept on all season. He can knock down the three, which is what that Duke team needs.
I think we owe Duke a solemn apology. I'm calling them out earlier.
Slightly. I still don't think they're let me see them play a legit team that I think is good. Let me see that first.
Fair
and
enough.
then
Lucas, down the stretch, how are you evaluating these teams? Or anything that you're really looking for? Are you really putting a lot of weight in how these teams close out the season?
Yeah, you got to look at the whole body of work because a lot of these teams play a really tough non-conference schedule. That obviously factors into it. For teams like Duke and Kentucky and North Carolina, Kansas, they have freshmen that come in and they may be horrible to start. They have to look at the whole body of work. They could come out hot and then slow down even. So you got to look at the whole picture and wins and losses. Just like who did you lose to, who'd you beat? And how are they doing at that certain point? Because I can't travel back in time and have known that, North Carolina was this bad or this good.
Right. Yeah, definitely when I tried to make my bracket, which you can check out at thechallenge-sports.com, just want to plug it one more time. Put a lot of time and effort into it.
Tony Brackets.
It was what would you say, Poppy?
Tony Brackets.
Tony Brackets, I like it.
Tony Brackets.
I have to change my Twitter handle if I get all 68 teams right. But, evaluating these teams down the stretch, it was hard. I had 15 teams with different tabs looking at them. I really looked at how many key wins you have and how many opportunities to get those key wins, because a lot of teams like Houston don't have that many opportunities, but they were able to win all of their good opportunities. That's why they're so highly ranked in my mind. And obviously bad losses, they're going to hurt. So I think that UNC Marquette loss, that's a big one for them. It's definitely going to drop them down a seed level. I don't think it knocks them out of the tournament. It definitely knocks them down. But moving over to the player of the week, a team that will certainly be in the tournament is Creighton. And a big reason is because of their point guard, Marcus Zagrowski. Now, you're not going to believe this, but he's the brother of Michael Carter Williams. Totally different last name, but they are related. And he's been balling out almost just as well as his brother has. Against Villanova, which is a previous week, we're a little late in getting the news to you. He had 25 points in their upset win. Really been playing well all season, averaging 15 points a game. Poppy, do you see a little MCW in this guy?
Honestly, I don't see much MCW in Marcus Zagrowski, which is interesting. I think Marcus is much better from the three than his brother, Michael. It's kind of weird. Marcus Zagrowski, very under-recruited player, not thought of that high coming out of high school, goes to Creighton, has a really nice freshman season, shoots 42% from three, follows it up his sophomore season. He improves. And now he's kind of just taken he's plateaued at this level. He's had an okay season. I thought he was really going to have a big year. He was the preseason Big East Player of the Year coming into this season. So obviously had a lot of accolades, but that's not to say that he isn't playing well. And I think he's, just kind of adjusting, like you mentioned, Lucas. These kids need time to adjusting to being the main ball handler for his team this season. He was doing some of that, but he was playing a little more off ball in past years and being asked to, knock down threes, coming off screens and playing off ball, really. And that's not what he's doing this year, but he's still been very effective. And in the game they needed him most against Villanova, he was great.
Yeah, this Creighton team has been very hot. Only 2 losses since December 17th. So they've been just cooking the Big East. Zagrowski's a big reason. Lucas, NBA potentially is a little undersized, only 6'2".
Yeah, he's a little undersized, but undersized guys are in the league all over the place. You got Jalen Brunson in there. I mean, you got Michael Mulder out there. You got some short guys out there. As long as you can sling it and make a 3 out of 40+% clip, you have a chance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Van Vliet's another guy that's been just cooking, and he's certainly found his role at the 3-point line.
Highest played undrafted player of all time.
Yeah, Van Vliet has been cooking. Zagrowski, though, he does a little bit of everything. He got some assists, got some rebounds, averages around 5 of those a game. Creighton, I think that they're actually a threat. Usually, when I see him in the tournament, I don't really pay too much attention to him. But I've seen Creighton play this year. Zagrowski's a great ball handler, able to feed his open guys. And Creighton's another team like Alabama that lives and dies by that 3-point shot.
It's just going to come down to that for those kind of teams. If they're hitting their shots, if they get hot at the right time of the year, things are going to go well. If not, it's probably not going to end well for Creighton.
Early exit. Moving over to Saturday, some big games on the Saturday slate. Big games going on right now on Thursday, but Saturday is when all the teams will be in action. So we'll break down some of the biggest matchups. You can head over to our Twitter account at Cali to Cuse on Saturday. We should have some plays for you. On the year, we're hanging around 500. 36-36, boys. We need a big week to close out the season above 500. Let's get into some of the games. Now, the Vegas lines aren't out on these games yet because it's only Thursday. The lines usually come out Friday night. But we'll start in the Big 12 at noon on Saturday. Texas at Texas Tech. Texas has been slipping a little bit of late. Texas Tech kind of around 500 in the Big 12, but still ranked 18th in the country. Lucas, your thoughts?
I watched Texas Tech play earlier this week, and they just rely so much on Mac McClung. Like, if he doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. And I just think that Texas is a little bit better, well-rounded. You got the big men and then the point guards out there and the guard play they got. I'm going to go Texas here. Don't feel great about it, but I'm going to go with Texas.
Bobby?
I like the Texas pick as well. I think I'll take them to win this game. It's going to be interesting to see how they rebound coming off of the loss against West Virginia when Courtney Ramey and Andrew Jones were yelling at each other in the huddle. They were winning at that point against the Mountaineers and then just completely went cold, and West Virginia completely took over the game too. So that'll be an interesting dynamic to watch play out. But I do like Texas. I agree. I was high on this Texas Tech team, but there's just, I don't know, there's something about them. It doesn't seem like they can score when they need to. They have Mac McClung, who's a very quality player. And I think they have other guys. I really like Terrence Shannon Jr., but he hasn't seemed to put it all together yet.
Yeah, Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be a great player at the next level. Only a freshman, still playing well for Chris Beard's team. Just want to make a correction. I think earlier in the podcast we said that Kansas beat Texas, but Texas actually came back and beat Kansas in their last game. So Texas did come off that West Virginia loss, able to pick a win, looking to make it 2 in a row. I say they get it done. Texas is a team that needs to get it going quick. They have a lot of experienced guards. I think that argument in the West Virginia game was a little scary because they looked like a totally different team after that argument between Coleman and Ramey. But I think that might help them. Maybe they got the differences behind them. Maybe they're ready to go. And if they want to make a late push, starts with this at Texas Tech, because after this, they have Iowa State, Oklahoma, and TCU to close it out. So 2 easier games than that Oklahoma game will loom big. So I'll take Texas in this one, but it should be down to the wire between the Red Raiders and the Longhorns. Then at 2 o'clock on Saturday in the Big Ten, Number 5, Illinois, which they may move down, but right now they're number 5, going up against number 23, Wisconsin on the road. Illinois probably going to be without their best player in Ayo Dosunmu, who we talked about earlier, suffered a broken nose or facial injury against Michigan State. Dosunmu did stay in that game against Michigan State, but not expected to play against Wisconsin. Poppy, does this seem like an easy smacker for the Badgers, even though they're not your favorite team to bet on?
It doesn't to me, actually. I still like Illinois here. A lot's gonna come down to what they can get out of their guards, Adam Miller and Trent Frazier especially. They're gonna have to pick up some scoring slack. But I think Kofi Cockburn's gonna dominate. I think he's gonna dominate. I don't think Wisconsin has the bigs to hang with him by any means. They're fine down there. I believe Nate Reavers is their big and somebody else too, but he's not good. I'll tell you that much. He's not good. Hunter Dickinson dominated those two guys when Michigan and Wisconsin played in the second half, especially, as neither of them had a rebound.
Yeah. The other big man you're thinking of is, let me get the first name here, Micah Potter is
correct.
Wisconsin's other big man. And, yeah, I think Kofi Cockburn is going to dominate this game. That being said, I think guards win games. And I think without their best, ball handler, facilitator, and Dosunmu, Wisconsin is going to – I have them sneaking this one out. Lucas.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to have to go with Wisconsin on this one. It's just too much of a hole to fill. You have a potential Big Ten Player of the Year, and you're going to be out against a quality team like Wisconsin. The three ball, Kofi Cockburn's going to cook down low, get his twos, but, if Wisconsin can hit their threes, at a time when I actually need them to hit their threes, that would be great. So I'm going to go Wisconsin here.
Then the nightcap on Saturday, a huge one to end out the slate. Number 2, Baylor, still undefeated on the year, going on the road, tough place to play. Rock Chalk Jayhawk, Kansas, looking to keep that momentum rolling. This would be a huge win for their resume. Lucas, I know you love the Jayhawk team, but can they finally end this Baylor run?
No, I think this is the wake-up call Baylor actually needed against a really shitty Iowa State team. I think this is exactly what they needed, a really out-of-nowhere team. They grinded it out, and then Kansas has owned them forever. How many Big 12 championships does Kansas have over the past 20 years? Probably too many for all of our fingers. So, it's Baylor's year. They're the better team, and I'm going to go Baylor here.
Yeah, that Iowa State game was interesting, but Iowa State shot the lights out from 3 in that one, so I'm not too worried about Baylor. And it was their first game in a while because of COVID. So I think they're back. I'm going to take Baylor.
Yeah, roll Bears in this one. I don't see any chance Kansas has to hang with them. I really think that Baylor might come out and make a statement. That's kind of a pattern that I've noticed in the Big 12 recently is when these other teams get good, they go into Fog Allen. Like Texas earlier in the year shot the lights out there and beat them. West Virginia did it a couple of years ago too, I believe. They go in there, have monster nights, and come away with a win. And I think I'm expecting a big night out of Jared Butler in this one.
So it sounds like none of you are a little scared after that Iowa State game Baylor had?
No. I've seen Iowa State play. They can shoot the lights out, and their record is shitty, but the team isn't awful. There's some pieces there. And I believe they've dealt without a couple players because of COVID. They've had some serious issues, so it's just been a bad year in Ames.
Ames, Iowa. They love their Cyclones down there. But that about does it for us with the college basketball talk. Before we let you go, we always have our one last thing, something that stuck out to us throughout the week that isn't necessarily college basketball related. And this week we'll talk about the NFL and the movement, the quarterback carousel. It's probably bigger than it's ever been, the quarterback carousel in the NFL. Poppy, I see on our rundown here, you're thinking 15 teams. 15 teams.
Yes.
Are going to have new quarterbacks next year. It's going to be a whole new league.
I think there's a very good chance, yes. I mean, there might be some teams on here that you can really debate with me over, specifically the Carolina Panthers. I threw them in. But I think there's a lot of teams on this list that are certainly going to have new quarterbacks. I got the Lions, Rams, Dolphins, Falcons, Jags, Jets, Texans, Bears, Patriots, Colts, Eagles, Washington football team, Panthers, Saints, Broncos, all of them. New quarterbacks next year.
The Broncos actually is what surprises me.
Drew Lock might still be there, but he's not the answer. I think it's time to move on. So I expect John Elway to try and land a free agent.
I'm thankful you actually didn't put the Niners because I do want to see
Jimmy G. Didn't put on there is the Niners,
Yeah.
I'm happy Pop believes in Jimmy G as well as I do.
I don't believe in him. I just don't know that they're going to move on necessarily.
All right, we'll take it. We'll take it.
We'll take it. Yeah, Phillip Rivers, he's obviously gone, so Colts need a new guy there.
Carson
Carson.
Wentz.
Carson.
Well, that's right. They got Carson. I totally forgot. Things are moving so fast. I can't even keep up. But I guess for my Jets, speaking of my quarterback situation, I just hope that we give Sam Darnold another chance. I feel like he hasn't given the chance. I think any quarterback that's been in that situation, whether it's Flacco, McCown, whoever our backup was that year, none of them have looked good. So I think you need to build some pieces around Sam Darnold. This is the draft to do it. You kind of do it with the O-line. I'll get some receivers for him. Poppy, I know your team's all set with your quarterback situation. But I do want to talk about Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. Those are kind of the two big quarterbacks on the move this offseason. At least they should be on the move. Your thoughts of where those guys will land? We'll go with Lucas first.
For Deshaun, I would love to see him get traded to the 49ers. I mean, imagine a guy that could just be that type of player on a read option and then kick it to Debo or throw it down the seam to George Kittle or even take it off himself. Throw it up to Ayuk. You got Juice Check out there. I love me some Jimmy G. And he will always be one of my favorite quarterbacks for the 49ers, and also has never gotten the respect that he deserves. They win 66% of the games he plays in. That's a really great thing. But I understand why. It's it's a crazy offense, and Deshaun would complete it. For Russell Wilson, it's not his choice. It's wherever Sierra wants to live. You look at these four teams right here. You see that Cowboys. Texas, no state tax. You see the Saints, New Orleans. You see the Raiders, Vegas. Sierra does so many things probably, and that is close enough to LA that she can hop on a flight for an hour and switch in between. And then the Bears is a big market team as well. So, I mean, it's obviously those four teams were going to be the four teams in my opinion. And honestly, they would be instant Super Bowl contenders with them on the team.
The one thing, I guess, if Sam Darnold doesn't stay in New York, if we're able to get Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson, I will be okay with that.
That's fair.
Yeah, of course you'd be okay with that.
I just don't want them going out and drafting the BYU quarterback and starting over. But
I kind of think that they're going to, though. I mean, I hear that they're trying to patch things over with Sam Darnold, but it's just not the GM's guy and it's not the coach's guy. And a lot of times that just kind of spells the end for you, unfortunately. I know Darnold's numbers, like analytics-wise, aren't the best either. I personally think he deserves another chance somewhere else if it's not with the Jets, but I don't see him staying there. And I didn't even factor in the Seahawks in this. So it could be 16 teams if Russell Wilson is on the move. But it's just crazy. A lot of these quarterbacks, Matt Stafford's gone. Matt Ryan is a free agent, not expected to be there anymore. Scott, another guy who every year we're talking about whether or not the Cowboys are going to re-sign him, franchise tag him. I just think this is an unprecedented situation in the NFL, and it's happening at the most important position in all of sports probably, which is crazy to see play out. Guys are just on the move like it's nothing, and this is a major thing. You need to learn the offense. You need to get comfortable with your teammates. It's crazy to watch play out.
I think this was long overdue. For years, you've heard Ben Roethlisberger is going to retire. Somehow he's still in the game. Somehow Tom Brady's still in the game. But you knew that those two guys are going to be out soon. Stafford, Rivers, Breeze. Yeah, these guys have been at their teams for so long. You knew a huge switch up was going to happen. And slowly we're seeing it. This seems like the big year where everybody is finally on the move. Any last thoughts about these quarterbacks here?
I mean, me and Paul, I asked this question to him. Would you do Deshaun and Herbert straight up?
Probably not, honestly. It's close. Obviously, the easy thing to say is, yes, I want Deshaun Watson. But after a season like that with Justin
Herbert, dude, he did some things out there, and he's fun. He's young. He's only 23 on a rookie deal.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of pros for both sides. But to get a Deshaun, I mean, it's a tough question. That's why I asked it. It's not an easy one to wrap your mind around because both you're in the same spot. Like you're both very good. But one's just worth $150 million, and also one's 23.
And conversely, let me ask you a question.
Be worth that, though. Yeah. What?
Let me ask you the question, though. So the Niners, obviously, if they want to get Deshaun Watson, they're going to have to trade probably either Nick Bosa or Fred Warner, two of their studs on defense. One of those guys, probably a first-rounder as well. Personally, that's why I didn't even put them on my list because I think that's way too much to give up. Both those guys are so valuable on their defense. You throw in first-round picks, too. I get it's Deshaun Watson, but after a while, it's really hard for me to want to part ways with either Fred Warner, who's maybe the best linebacker in the league, and Nick Bosa, who before his ACL injury was on fire his rookie year.
And think about what Stafford went for, because Deshaun's going to go for more than what Stafford
exactly.
went for.
Yeah, to answer that question, it's hard because I think Kyle Shanahan values his D-line so much. That's our best. But we gave up DeForest Buckner for a first-rounder last year, which is now Kinlaw. And is he going to make that jump? And then Bosa's kind of damaged goods right now. It's complicated. Fred Warner is a great story out of BYU. Got the opportunity and just ran with it. Great player, just a stud. It would probably be him only because Shanahan values his D-line so much, and if you have a great D-line, you're contending for a while.
Just how crazy would San Fran's offense look, though, with Kyle Shanahan calling plays with Deshaun Watson as his quarterback?
Nuts. Yeah, it'd be insane to watch.
Worth the best linebacker in the league, potentially.
There you go.
In the first round.
That's how you rationalize it.
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say on the topic is if the Jets do get Russell Wilson, it could be an amazing trade. Because we traded them Jamal Adams on it, obviously. So what if we trade all of our picks that we got from the Jamal Adams thing, give them back to Seattle, and just get Russell Wilson and be eventually Russell Wilson for Jamal Adams, which I think the Jets definitely win that trade. Russell Wilson's a god.
I don't like Russ. I'm a Russ hater, so I agree. But yeah, you're right.
That's true. But that about does it for us on Cali to Cuse, up in the Rafters. Ended it with some NFL talk, but I hope you enjoyed the entire show. Huge week of college basketball. Championship week is starting. Conference tournaments are around the corner. Get ready. It's going to be a big finish. We'll be back next Friday. We'll be back on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch our YouTube show on Saturday mornings. That does it for us. From Cali to Cuse, I'm Anthony Scott. For Lucas Silverman and Andrew Papicari, have a good one.
Peace.